The Ron G Morning Show, every Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. only on WSAN Radio, the soul of America. Arthur, I am so proud of you. I've been looking at some of your interviews you've been doing, very insightful on the things that you've been doing.
Thank you.
And I read up on Erin right here because I'm nosy. and I tell you what, reading her, I mean, I just sit back. I said, I'm glad Martha's doing the interview because I got 1,001 questions for this young
Well,
lady.
you'll be able to ask those questions while you're on here, which is
Okay.
great.
Okay.
So with that being said, Erin, I just want to introduce you to Ron Gordon. He is the founder and CEO of WSAN Radio. He is the voice to the voiceless. His passion is to bring businesses like ourselves to the limelight, to show the world who we are and to give a voice on his station. What's amazing is that he can continue to build a relationship with you after the show. I'll be able to send him your information, and he does advertisements and all of that. So that's what's amazing. And he's seen across the countries and also in the United States. So that's a blessing. So with that being said, Ron, I want to introduce you and the audience to Erin Darden. She is an emotional intelligence relationship coach. She was also an attorney at one time, which has an interesting twist. She has so much background in that area of relationships when it comes to emotional intelligence. So what I want to do is, Erin, I would love for you to talk to us about what personal or professional experience sparked that passion to help people in the area of emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. So I actually think it is more of a personal journey influence. A lot of what I teach comes from my own direct journey, both professionally and in my personal life. Like you said, by trade, I am an attorney, but I could tell pretty quickly on that that was not why I was created. And I went on a search to figure out why I was here. And in that search, I had to think about, what things did I overcome? What things did I have to learn? Because I truly believe that you are giving certain obstacles, not just for yourself, but so that you can help other people overcome it. And so communication is a huge thing that I have struggled with, from going from being extremely shy and not standing up for myself and waiting for people to treat me how they should be and it never happening, to now, oh, I'm going to stand up for myself. And so I went from one extreme to the other because now I'm an attorney, so I know how to speak assertively. I am also from Philadelphia, so you add that into the mix. And I went from not speaking up, not saying anything, to I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel whenever, and I don't care what anybody has to say about it. But I also learned that also was not effective. And so communication is something that I've had to work at for years. But I also realized that communication is one of the biggest reasons that relationships end. Right, 65% of relationships end in divorce, and of that percentage, at least 70% cited communication issues to the cause of that divorce. But what I found is that as I've done more research and I've talked to a lot more people, it's not that those problems were unsolvable. They just didn't understand each other. They didn't know how to work through it, right? And so now this is where my legal background comes in, right? Because lawyers solve problems. And so now what I've been able to do is combine my personal journey and learning how to communicate and stand up for myself and self-love journey with my passion for emotional intelligence and helping people reframe their minds around emotions, and that they're not weaknesses. They're there to tell you something, right? They're messengers. And then using my legal background and teaching people those problem solving skills, those resolution skills, so that we can have healthier relationships long term that we deserve and we want.
Oh man, I love it. Thank you so much for taking us on that high level journey. I can kind of see how it come into play. And you're right, communication is huge. And when a lot of times emotional intelligence always sound like a buzzword, right? But it is foundational. So in your work, how do you actually tell the audience, how do you define, in a way that's, that they can understand, what the average person can understand? What is emotional intelligence? Because some people just they hear it, but they don't quite know what that is.
Yep. So emotional intelligence textbook answer is your ability to identify, understand, and manage your emotions, but also the other person, right? I specifically work with romantic relationships, but you can use it for any type of relationship. And so a lot of what I have to do is reframe how we look at emotions, right? Especially when it comes to men, right? When it comes to men, emotions are seen as weakness, right? Something that I should avoid, something that I should suppress, but that's not the case. Emotions are messengers. And when you learn to, or when you're taught to suppress them, you are missing out on vital information that they are trying to tell you, right? Emotions serve a purpose, they serve a function. And without that information, you're missing out on life, right? Emotions are supposed to motivate actions. Like they're telling you something needs to happen. They're giving you internal information that, hey, you have a need that is not being met. They also help you communicate, right? They help to foster connection. And these are things that you need for any type of relationship, whether it's in the workplace, which is where you hear people talk about emotional intelligence a lot. But I think our romantic relationship have a bigger impact on our quality of life, which is why I specifically work with it in romantic relationships. And so these are the things that you have to have if you are going to have a healthy and successful relationship. And so it's about understanding what your emotions are trying to tell you, and then where do you go from there? Right? How do I manage and communicate what I'm feeling to my partner in a way that is going to move our relationship closer as opposed to tear us apart?
And you know what? I like that you mentioned that because a lot of times we want to skip over our emotions when they actually are communicating. And that's what I love about how amazing God made us to be able to let our body tells us so many things. It tells us when our health is out of order. It tells us when our mental health is out of order. And as well, as well as our physical. But we can choose to ignore it.
Mhm.
But it's a danger in ignoring it. We think if we don't, the myths that come behind I'm okay. I'm
Mhm.
supposed to be strong. I'm not supposed to do this and I'm not supposed to do that. All of these myths that come into play, we really have to tear it down because it's really causing us a lot of mental health stress and relationships to be pushed to the side. Now, when you dealing, especially when you're dealing with conflict. So speaking of that, it can either divide or deepen our relationships. And I think that we're afraid to go in that area when we need to step into that arena and build that muscle. How do you guide people in your practice, you know, with emotional intelligence when it comes to conflict,
Yeah. So
especially when emotions are running high?
yeah, so the first thing that I have to tell people is that just because you ignore or suppress them, the emotions don't go away. They just resurface in other ways. And sometimes that can look like shutting down. It could look like getting angry, snapping, or so they don't go away. And so you might as well listen to them and use them in a healthy way. So when it comes to conflict, the first thing I tell people is don't talk. We tend to go and try to resolve conflict right away. But when you are engulfed in your emotions, right? When you're yelling, screaming, hollering, you cannot have a productive conversation, right? The human brain does not allow you to be emotional and logical at the same time. Like it's impossible. And so you have to allow your emotions to run their course. And so, what I am teaching, especially this summer in my summer program, right, I am teaching how to process your emotions. So, before you even go and talk to your partner, there are some things that you need to do on your own. Right? I think we sometimes look for external validation when it comes to what we are feeling and what we should be doing when you have to give that to yourself, right? You are the expert of you, right? I tell people that I'm not going to tell you what to do. I can teach you how to listen to you, but I can't tell you what to do. And so it's about processing what's going on, right? What is the trigger? Why was that a trigger for you, right? What did that bring up for you? Something in the past? Is it an emotional trigger? And then once they have this idea or they kind of understand what's going on, I make them challenge that. Is that something that the person in front of you did, or are you projecting something from past experience? All right. Feelings and are not facts, right? And emotions and
Right.
feelings are different things. I know we try to use those interchangeably, but they're different
Mm-hmm.
things. And so feelings are not facts. And so I make people challenge that, right? So now I also make them figure out, is this a me, them, or us problem? Is this something that I need
Mm-hmm.
to work on? Is it something that they need to work on? Is it something we need to do together? And when I tell people to go and have those conversations, know what you want to get out this conversation before you even go and talk to this person. Are you just venting? Is there some type of change behavior that needs to happen? And have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I felt dismissed when you were on your phone and I was trying to talk to you. Next time, can you at least put your phone down when I'm talking to you?
Mm.
Right?
Yes.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
when you learn how to communicate like that, right? And that's the magic sentence that I tell people to use. I told you what the problem was. I told you how I was feeling. I told you what I need you to do instead. There's nothing for us to argue about.
Right.
As opposed to if I'm trying to communicate with you and you're on your phone, if I just come, you never listen to me. Now,
That's not proper
it's
communication.
it's not
Yeah.
and we're not going to get anywhere because I'm going to say, yes, I do. I listened to you earlier. I listened to you yesterday. Now, with it, right, you have to focus on how you are feeling, right? What that emotion is and what you need to be differently next time.
Amen. Ron got all kind of alarms going off. So I really want to see if he want to chime in before I move on.
Well, you hit the nail on the head on some things with the emotion part of it, because me myself personally, I was a hothead back in the days.
Mhm.
I just respond off my emotions, and I learned as getting older and wiser that I do not respond off I don't respond off my emotions. I sit back and think about what I'm going to say. Is it worthwhile saying this? Did that really hurt you that bad? You got all upset. So I sit back, evaluate everything, and then I respond.
Mhm.
And I found out doing that, there's a lot more, not that many arguments. But the question I have for you, one of the 20,000 questions I have,
Okay.
how can someone begin to improve their emotional awareness and response, especially during a conflict?
So, like I said, first thing is to take a break. Don't try to resolve things right away. And when you are in that break, that's when the self-reflection needs to happen. So sometimes I tell people that you need to journal, write down everything that you are feeling. Sometimes just writing it down, it's enough for you, right? As opposed to giving that energy to your partner who might come and match it, and which is now also not productive. Write it
Mm-hmm.
down. Also, have a safe space. If you have a person that will listen to you and let you vent. Now, when I say have a person, make sure that this person is not going to project their experience on you, right? People have a hard time of stepping outside themselves. They want to jump in. Well, I would do this or you should do that.
Mm-hmm.
When I say you should have a safe space, I mean somebody that is going to listen to you and that's it. Don't offer their opinion, right? Because you need to figure out how to handle these things, right? So you
Mm.
don't need to go to somebody that's going to say, oh, yeah, you need to go and punch him in the face. That's not what you want, okay? So you need a safe space where you can just vent, write everything out. Maybe sometimes you have to sit with your phone and record yourself just talking. But that is the time where you have to self-reflect, right? I also tell people there's something called a wheel of emotion. And so it literally has all of the emotions that you can possibly be feeling. And most
Mm-hmm.
people only identify the core emotions like sadness, happiness, anger, but it goes so much deeper. Like, are you really angry or are you disappointed? Are you frustrated? Are you know what I mean? So sit down with that wheel of emotion and really get deeper because unless you name it, the problem is going to resurface. If you just say, I'm mad versus
Right.
I'm disappointed that this happened, and then we can talk about how to make sure I'm not disappointed again. But if you're mad, it's so ambiguous. I don't know where to go from there. So it's about knowing how to identify and recognize your emotion. And if that's not something that you're familiar with, because a lot of people aren't raised to identify their emotions, right? We're shut down. Nobody cares. Stop crying, right? Boys don't cry, those types of things. So a lot of us aren't given the opportunity to explore our emotions growing up. And so we're trying to play catch up as adults while we're also in these relationships and function, going throughout the world, which is difficult. Sit down with the wheel of emotion. All right. And really start to identify, okay, I feel like this, I feel like that. And now what needs to happen from there?
I'm just
I
jumping.
like the wheel of emotions because
Yeah.
I use that too, because a lot of times people go to secondary emotions versus the primary. The secondary, like you said, is I'm mad, but the primary is disappointment. But go ahead, Ron.
So I was going to bring that point up right there. When I dated years ago and I had hair, um, there was the lady I was dating, and I started using that saying, I'm disappointed in you. You know what she told me? I'd rather you be mad at me than disappointed, because disappointed hurts. It cuts deep when you use that word. I didn't know how powerful disappointment was.
Mhm.
Because if you use the word mad, oh, they got ammunition coming out the yin and come back at you. But when you say, I'm disappointed in you, they actually sit back and think and sit back and don't have a comeback.
Mhm. Yeah, and it also gives that person, and it should actually be a good thing, right? Because if you tell me you are disappointed in me, that gives me the opportunity to fix whatever it is, would fix my behavior moving forward so that I know that you're not disappointed. But if you just tell me you're mad, I don't know what to do with that. Right. And so I think we have to be mindful about giving our person or whomever it is the opportunity to grow and be better for us next time. Right. So tell me you're disappointed. Right. That's actually the healthier way to communicate. Tell me you're disappointed. What did I do to let you down so that I know how to fix this next time? Like we got to be solution focused, which I think a lot of people are not. They just want to be angry and hold on to this energy. And life is too short for that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't go into conversations with a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is I want the other person to hear what I have to say so we can resolve. They go with, I want to be right versus does this work? Does this not work? We have to get out of the I want to be right syndrome and get into what is this person actually communicating to me? And I think we don't take a pause to take the time out to do that if we're not careful, because that conflict is going to happen.
Yes.
And I think we have to be okay with engaging it because it's actually rewarding and it's actually transformative, So I think it's a great thing to do. But so when what are the most common emotional blind spots you see in relationships?
The most common emotional blind spots. I would have to say one, not being able to recognize, right, how they are feeling, right? They don't go past the primary emotions to get to the deeper emotions. I would say that's a big one. I would also say trying to suppress emotions, right? Because of how people are raised, they're taught, don't cry, that's a weakness, nobody cares. So suppressing is also an issue. I think a third thing I would say, people don't know how to validate their own emotions, right? We look for external people to validate, and that's dangerous, right? You have to be able to validate your own emotions. Everybody's emotions are valid. Your emotions are valid. Now, what do we do about it, right? And so, because unfortunately, we are not all blessed enough to have safe people around us where we can share and they validate our emotions. Like we might be in an environment or relationship where our emotions are not, but it's still important for you to be able to do that for yourself. I think the other thing, another emotional blind spot, is how we think about emotions, right? The stereotypes that women are emotional and men are logical, which is absolutely not true. And that dichotomy also causes a whole lot of other issues in the world, not even just your relationship, but in the world. That dichotomy causes a lot of issues. And then I think people not being solution focused, right? I'm angry. I want to hold on to this. And I'm coming with my gloves on. I want to fight. But if you are in this relationship and you want this something to be long term, you got to take the gloves off. And it's you and that person against the problem. Even if you're feel overwhelmed, it has to be you and your partner against you feeling overwhelmed, not I feel overwhelmed because you don't help, so I want to fight you. And so I think that those are probably some of the biggest blind spots I see when it comes to emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I do too. And I love when you mentioned there's two of them that I really, really, really see a lot. And that's the validation piece. People want other people to validate them, which is actually keeping you in a funnel of insecurity. And a lot of times we don't, that's it's almost like a drug. You're looking for that fix, that validation fix, but it's not going to help you at the end of the day because you're going to want it more. But what do you see in yourself? What people don't have to validate, they can confirm it, but validation is totally different. I love how you said it because a lot of times we don't want to, we stay in that cycle, and it's like you can see it, you can see the traits of it, right? It'll wear you out. A person like that will wear you out because you got to babysit their personality and regulate their emotions when that's not what a relationship is.
Right. And even I think also the other thing about validation is when you aren't able to validate your own emotions and what they're trying to tell you, right? You set yourself up to be manipulated,
Oh,
right?
God, say
That's
that
when
again.
your partner can come in and dismiss what you are feeling, dismiss that your needs are not being met, right? Dismiss a lot of things. Then like, oh, well, maybe I am okay, or maybe I'm not, right? And then now we're in this relationship longer than we need to be because our needs are
Mm,
not being met, but because I don't know how to validate it and communicate that myself, and I'm looking to my partner to say, oh yeah, I messed up. I didn't, right? I leave myself vulnerable for the manipulation that will not be healthy for to me long term.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That manipulation piece is big because as long as they stroking your ego, they can get anything they want out of you. And you don't know who you are. And you never learn who you are in the realm of seeking validation. Then you mentioned another thing when you talked about like uh I'm having an old moment right now because I forgot that quick. But I'm so stimulated by this conversation. Ready to come back. But anyway, tell us a time. I know you've done a lot. Share a story of when you utilize emotional intelligence to transform someone or a
Okay.
couple or individual.
Once, let me think of a good one. I would say one example that pops into my head quickly. It was a couple, and the wife was feeling overwhelmed. Um, the story was something along the lines of like she sent the child upstairs for bath time with the husband. Um, it exploded. And so, as I was talking to them about what was happening, the issue was not so they were fighting about who should do bath time, who does more around the house. As I was listening and talking to them, what I realized is that it wasn't about who does the bath time or who did what. Their issue is how they talk to each other, right?
Yeah, that
Like you
can
said,
be big. And I love
conflict.
that part I was thinking about was when you mentioned how the males are, practical and the women are emotional.
Mhm,
When it's funny because a lot of men suppress their emotions because of that fallacy.
mhm,
When you're not human if you don't have emotions. We are made up of, feelings and emotions, but that don't mean you weak either.
mhm. Yep.
That vulnerability is huge
Yep. Yep.
when it
And
comes to relationships.
yeah, and I think that, right, so like you said, conflict is inevitable. It's how you handle it that matters. And so how you fight or quote unquote fight matters a lot. And especially I think when it comes to men and their emotions, I think it's not biologically true that men are naturally born more logical and women are born more emotional. We have the same brain. The brain is wired to give emotions the upper hand, regardless of who you are. And so the difference is how we are nurtured, right? And so if you are never given the opportunity to explore your emotions, right? As soon as a little boy falls down, unfortunately, it's right, boys don't cry. Man up. Nobody wants to hear that. And so, like you said, they are taught to suppress. But all that means is they're going to express it in ways that are more socially acceptable, like aggression and anger. Um, but it doesn't have to be, right? And be you are allowed to feel all of your emotions. You are allowed to be sad. And that doesn't mean that you have to throw a temper tantrum and you have to, have this big meltdown, make big meltdown, right? Just simply acknowledging I felt sad by that or that hurt my feelings. Sometimes that's enough. That's enough to give your emotions the power and to tell you what you need, right? It doesn't have to be this big meltdown and drawn out, and it doesn't have to look soft and right. You get to dictate or you get to decide how you respond to your emotions. Handle when you learn how to sit back and self-reflect, you can go and communicate, hey, I felt like this when you did this. Next time, can you do that? It's nothing to argue about. It wasn't this big blowout. It wasn't this big screaming match. I didn't throw a temper tantrum. I listened to what I was feeling and I communicated what I needed to communicate to the person.
And with that couple that you had, did you see that dynamic play out where you saw the woman emotional and the man is looking at himself as practical?
So I don't know if I would say that he necessarily like expressly said that, but he was definitely more nonchalant. And like, it's not a big deal, or we don't have to have that conversation. I said, but it also is important to recognize who your partner is, right? And the things that your partner goes through when you are having these conversations, right? And so in their situation, she is the type of person that needed to resolve things right away, right? She has more of an anxious style, whereas he is more, I'm gonna take my time, I'm gonna respond. But that for somebody that likes to have things resolved right away and they're conflict adverse, waiting can also build up more anxiety, right? And so what we
Yes.
talked about was how do we compromise here, right? He needs time to think and process, and she needs conflict to be resolved right away, right? But the other thing we had to address was taking time to think. You cannot use that time to avoid the conversation altogether. You have to come back to the conversation, right? Because some people are like, oh, I just need time to process and they never want to come back to it. No, that's avoiding accountability, right? And so the compromise there was you have to say, okay, I need a day. I need a little bit of time, but I promise I will come back to it, right? Giving her the reassurance that she needs in that moment that, okay, we are going to come back to this and this conflict will get resolved, right? So you have to make sure that you are thinking about your person, right? It's not just about you. And that's the other thing I think people have you asked me about blind spots. People have a self-centered approach, which is normal.
Mm-hmm.
I think empathy is one of the big things that's missing in relationships. It's just me, my issues, my trauma. I want to fight. I want to protect myself, but we have a hard time stepping outside ourselves and see things from our partner's perspective. And so when we
Yes.
start to have those conversations, I see that, okay, I am also a person that needs time to reflect. Like, don't talk to me right away because I'm going to miss something. Now we got to keep having a conversation. So I need time. But I know that if I am talking to somebody that needs the reassurance, look, I promise we will come back to this conversation. I just need a second to think about it. I need a second to regather my thoughts, right? There has to be some type of compromise. You have to know who you are dealing with, right? I can communicate, hey, I need some time, as opposed to just ignoring you and ghosting you, right? So you just have to be aware of you and your communication style, your conflict resolution style, as well as your partners, and then use this there has to be some type of compromise going on.
Okay, that's so true. So tell us about your self-aware summer.
Okay, yes. So my self-aware summer, it is a 4-month journey. We about 2 weeks in. It is a self-aware. It's a 4-month journey where we are getting back to ourselves. We are really spending time and checking in with ourselves, figuring out what's going on with us, what do we need in this moment. So each month we are focusing on I call it like a different quadrant of the heart. So right now we are in self-awareness. And so we are talking about how do you manage or identify your emotions. So the next class is tomorrow. We're going to talk about how do you process your emotions? How do you know what they're trying to tell you? We've already talked about the function of emotions. And we also talked about like how the lens in which you are raised and where you see things impact how you respond to your emotions, and then how emotional intelligence helps you to come up with a healthier response to your emotions. Next month, we are talking about communication. So starting in July, it will be all about how do you communicate. Now that we know how to identify what we are feeling and how to process it, how do we go about communicating that? And so what's your communication style? What's your partner's communication style? How do you communicate in a way that is most effective? We will also be talking about intimacy and how do you recreate that, right? Because once you have reoccurring conflict, right, your intimacy starts to suffer. And so we
Yes.
are talk about intimacy. And then lastly, we're going to talk about creating emotional safety in your relationships. Again, I talk about romantic relationships, but it could be for any type of relationships. And so I do most of the teaching, but I do have some other therapists coming in to help with the teaching. And so we meet once a week, and then an extra group coaching session throughout the month. So the group coaching sessions where you really get to come and I'm going to get all in your business and ask all of the questions about really what's going on with you. So that is only happening inside of my membership community. And we are, even though we've already started, all of the replays are still available. And like I said, starting in July, we will be working on communication. So if that is something that you feel like you need help with, I would love to have you.
And so they can start at any point. And
you can start at any point. Once you join, you will immediately have access to the previous replays. So you can go back and watch all of the replays and then just jump right in whenever we meet on Tuesday. So that Tuesday.
Okay. Okay. Ron, you have any more questions before I continue?
I have one question. Does your faith or spiritual practice influence how you coach clients? No, not that question. The other one. How do you help clients heal emotionally while navigating grief, betrayal, or forgiveness?
Yeah. So the first thing is acceptance. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. I can't believe this is where I am, right? I can't believe they're gone. I can't believe my life looks like this, right? Because grief, I don't think it's just when somebody dies. You can grieve a lifestyle that you thought you were going to have. You could grieve a relationship that you had. So I think acceptance, it has to be the first thing. It is what it is. That's why I tell people, accept whatever it is on the table, you have to accept it. Right. And then I think with that acceptance, sometimes that comes with having to acknowledge that my life is going to look different. Sometimes it looks like being okay with it looking different, right? And that's just something that you have to come to terms with. And then I think it is, okay, if you are grieving and you know your life is going to look different, what does this look like now? And don't just let it happen. What influence do you have over this? Okay, this person is going, let's say your husband was your financial provider. So now you know that finances may be an issue. Let's come up with a way to make sure that it's not, right? Because you're already grieving, right? You're already going to miss this person. What do we do? What type of support systems do you need in place to minimize that impact of them being gone? And then I think the one thing that people try to skip over is time. Some things just part of this is just going to take time. You cannot rush it. And I know it doesn't feel good, right? Nobody likes to be sad. Nobody wants to grieve, but unfortunately it's a part of life. And in terms of that, there is no substitute for time. But you can control the other things or do what you can do to minimize the impact. And then after that, it's just time. But I find that when people are still stuck, it's because they have not come to terms and they have not accepted that their life is going to be different. So they have not started working on building a new life that they can enjoy to the best of their ability without, right, that person or that thing.
Okay.
Okay. So next week, you say you guys are going into communication, correct?
So whenever July starts. So I think we have one
July. July, okay.
Yep. So we have one more week. And so we actually have a guest speaker next week. She is a therapist. Something around self-awareness that she's talking about. I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
But the week after that, yes, we will be starting on communication. And so learning how to communicate without your partner shutting down or without you shutting down, right? How do we have those difficult conversations without things exploding? How do we get to the root of the problem? Because I've learned that people argue about surface level things, right? That couple I mentioned, they were arguing about who was going to do bath time, but the real issue was how you guys are talking to each other, right? So how do you make sure that you are getting to the root of the problem? Because when you have surface level conversations, but not have that deeper conversation, the problems are going to keep coming back over and over again. So teaching you how to make sure you're arguing about the right thing. And I say argue, but having conversations about the right thing so that
Right.
they don't resurface, because if you just sweeping it under the rug, then you're going to trip over it at some point.
Yeah, you do find out that when people are not communicating properly, you're like, what are they really arguing about?
And it's usually something small, right? Or it's like, why would you talk to me like that? Now we're talking about how you talking, and we really didn't get to what I first brought up. So
right. It's like the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? That conversation. So with the communication, communication is a skill. And when you think about it, like what are some of the common myths that you would love to like bust when it comes to communication? I know
So I'm
I'm
going to
asking
put
some great.
communication and conflict resolution kind of together because they work
Yeah,
together.
okay.
And so like I have like a list of things that like I tell people, but one I told you the first thing is like don't go and talk right away. Right? Give yourself time to process what you want and know what you want to get out of this conversation. But specifically when it comes to communication, address one issue at a time. We have a
Mm-hmm.
tendency to, I feel overwhelmed. Well, so do I. Well, now we're never going to get anywhere because we're just going to keep pointing out, I feel this, I feel that, right? And that's not to say that what you brought up is not also a concern. It's just that if we keep bringing up issues, we're never going to work through it. So write it down if you have to, so we can come back to it, but one issue at a time. And I know we typically do it as a defense mechanism, right? I do too, right? And it's a kind of to, well, you shouldn't feel like that because I feel like this. And so we have to kind of get out of that defensiveness and learn to have one conversation at a time, even if it is uncomfortable. I think we have a problem with issue spotting, right? I can say X and your response is Y. And if that happens, sometimes it is a comprehension issue because, believe it or not, the average American has an eighth grade reading level comprehension skill set. And so that definitely plays a part into it for a lot of people, even if we don't want to admit it. So there is a comprehension issue that goes on a lot of times. But sometimes what I tell people, if you feel like your partner is not responding, ask them, what did you hear me say?
Yes. Wait,
That's
you
my
mentioned
favorite line.
eighth grade comprehension.
The average American has an eighth grade comprehension level. So it's
Whether
like,
they want to admit it or not, right?
whether they want to admit it or not. So some of us are operating with not all our marbles. So,
Mm-hmm.
and right, we have to be honest about who our partner is, or if it's us, right? Be honest about it. You know, we like to,
Like I'm not understanding. Even like when you communicate, sometimes you, especially culturally, sometimes language play a big, huge role. Like I give you a perfect example. One time I was walking with a young lady. She was Caucasian, and I go, girl, shut up. And you know, in our culture, that means, girl, stop, right? Are you really serious? But she really was offended. She thought I was literally telling her to shut up. So she didn't speak to me. She was really distant. And I said, what's going on? You've been distant because I like to address the issue. And she said, you told me to shut up. I started laughing and I said, girl, let me tell you, in our culture,
yeah.
that means something different. And you really have to be mindful that everybody may not be thinking the way, seeing through your lenses. I was just addressing that point you said that the average person is comprehension, it's cultural, it's a lot of things that we don't recognize. I may not say this, but you looking at it this way. So I like when you said stop and ask, what did you hear me say?
Yeah.
Yes.
What did you hear me say? And also that other part, when I am talking to people, I don't let them speak in conclusory terms, right? Things that can be left
Elaborate on that.
things that can be left up to interpretation, right?
Okay.
And so people will come to me, oh, he's a narcissist, or he manipulative. No, I need you to describe what happened, because first of all, people overuse certain terms like narcissism. That's actually a clinical
Yes.
diagnosis that we
Yes, they do. You're right. Everybody talk about it.
right? And so it's like, no, I don't know what that means. Describe to me what has happened, right? Because let's say even if I allow it and you tell me, oh, he's a narcissist, but we talking about two different things. Just like you said, I could consider this,
Yes.
you can consider that, and then we're not on the same page. Like, so I feel like we have to have the same base point. So
Yes.
you got to describe to me what happens. I don't know. Let me think of another example. I don't know, things that can be something ambiguous that I could say,
Yes.
like, no, describe what happened. Like, how did you get to that conclusion? Because that's the part that I need to show your work. Like they used to say in math class, show your work.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got here. Like, why do you feel like this is the thing? Give me examples, type of thing. But also with communication, what's another thing? Like, it's not about right or wrong. You're both right for how you feel, right? Your emotions are
Right.
a physiological response that you cannot control. So you feel like this, they feel like this. You're both right. Now, where do we go from here? So it's not right or
Right.
wrong. Starting your sentences with emphasis on the
Mm-hmm.
emotion. I felt like emotion, right? Because when you start your sentences with you, the gloves come out. You did, uh,
Yeah,
right?
it's very pointing the finger and defend. It puts a person in, in a
Accusatory.
command of defending themselves because it's like you and it's pointing at you instead of you, because you can't control what other people feel.
Exactly. And so you also want to keep the focus on you and your emotions. I felt like this. How did you feel? Because the actions it may not be important. I don't care what you did. I'm just telling you how it made me feel. Because you could have meant the action. Well,
Right.
I didn't mean it. You might not have, but this is still how I feel. And hopefully you didn't mean to make me feel like this and we could have that conversation.
Right.
What other things? Keep the focus on you, your emotions, start your sentences with I. There's tons of things that I
Yeah,
tell
I'm
people.
sure.
Yeah.
How important do you
Uh,
think?
but
How important, I would say, talk to the way I realize how important it is, but how important is self-awareness when it comes to emotional intelligence?
oh, it's very important. That's the very first component of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, right? You also cannot change anything that you are not aware of. So when you lack self-awareness, that means you are also unaware of how you impact those around you. And so if you lack the self-awareness and your partner's trying to come and share something with you in terms of how they feel, but you lack the awareness, you're going to try to dismiss how they're feeling, and nobody wants to be dismissed in a relationship. I think if you lack self-awareness, you miss out on opportunities to grow.
Hmm.
Um, if you lack self-awareness, I feel like if you lack self-awareness and you also are not open-minded, right? That is the deadly combination. Because I mean, this is going to
Oh,
be for the rest of your life. You're never going to grow. You're never going to, hear your partner. You think that you are always right. And I just think that I don't
you
think
stuck, right?
you cannot be in a healthy relationship with somebody that lacks self-awareness and they're
Mm-hmm.
unwilling to, hear you out and grow.
Mm-hmm. Ron, what you got to say?
Well, all I have to
I
say
always can tell when he got a question or comment.
a question came in
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
and answered at the same time, but I'm gonna give my answer to this question and y'all can
Okay.
piggyback off of it. A lady writes in and she said, I'm in the bathroom in the morning. My husband is brushing his teeth. I can't stand the way he brushes teeth. So he told me one day, well, get out the bathroom. Let me brush my teeth in peace. She said, I blew up at him for kicking me out of the bathroom because of that. My answer to this is, why you in there with him anyway while he's brushing teeth? You can't stand how he brushes teeth. And he said, if he can't stand something that you do, is he let you know about that? But my deal is, to me, they set this stuff up for him telling her to get out the bathroom, and she got butthurt and got upset, and she said, "Was I right or wrong?"
Ooh,
So,
I would love for this is a good one. Come on, girl.
So my first question would be, what about that made you upset?
Yeah, I was thinking
You,
the same thing.
you didn't like something that he was doing, like you said, and he said, remove yourself from the situation. I think that is a valid solution, right? If you don't like it and you have the opportunity to remove yourself, you should, right? There's a quote, and I'll get back to this, but there's a quote that I think sums up emotional intelligence perfectly. It says, you can't control the storm, but you can control the sails. So you might not be able to control everything around you, but you control the things that you can. So if you dislike something that this person is doing and you don't have to be there while they're doing that, you should remove yourself, right? That's something that you have control over, right? Um, like you said, you can't control anybody else. I'm not exactly sure what the other solution is. You want him to get out while you go to the bathroom, or like, and so I also don't know, like, right, who was in there first, like, or maybe you guys need to set a rule that once one person is in the bathroom, the other one doesn't come in, right? I would ask more questions to figure out like were you right in blowing up? I'm not sure because what about that made you so upset? Like what ticked you off about him saying get out if you don't like this? I don't know if it was just the way he said it, that he actually said something. Like I would have to ask a whole lot more questions because I don't know what the other alternative would be for him to not come in when you are using the restroom, which is okay. Then you say that, when I'm in the restroom, then, can you wait until I'm done to come and brush your teeth? But again, being solution focused and thinking about what it is that you want to be differently, as opposed to saying, I hate the way you brush your teeth, right? That doesn't give him anything to work on, right? What's the solution that you want, right? I am very big on, I'm gonna tell you what I want. I'm gonna tell you what the solution is, because might come up with something I don't like. So I'm gonna tell you what I want exactly. Don't come in here while I'm in the bathroom, as opposed to, I hate the way you brush your teeth. That doesn't do anything. Versus, when I'm in the bathroom, can you wait until I'm done? Two
Yeah,
different, you know what I
two
mean?
different.
Two different conversations.
Yeah, and you're right. You would need more context, but you're right about, yeah, your response is everything, because you can't change other people, and that's not our responsibility. And so, that's another question that I have. Like, how do you help, like your members, you have members now, right? How do you help them stay empowered, with while they're doing the work, if their partner isn't
Mhm.
involved in
And so
the work?
that is actually very common. A lot of times I am working only with the woman, the wife, and the man is not, the husband or the boyfriend is not willing to
Mhm.
come and talk to me. Actually, very common, like 10 times out of 10 is the situation. And so what we do in that situation is we talk about the things that she can control, right? A lot of times, he this, he that. I want to talk about what you did, right? Because most of the times, two people are contributing to the way that things are in a relationship. So let's talk about what you have done and the part you play, even if the part you play is just staying too long, right? And then once we work through the part that you have played and what you can do better and what you need to do better, the next thing is, right, we're talking about adjusting the cells again. You know that this is your partner, right? What types of conversation do you need to have with him? So if you're saying that you feel dismissed, and we've done the work for you to figure out what he needs to do or what your partner needs to do so that you don't feel dismissed. Okay, now what does this conversation look like when you go to have this conversation with your partner, right? How do you explicitly tell them, this is how I feel, can you do this instead? Or if you know that certain things upset your partner or certain things tick your partner off, how do we change your language so that you're not doing that, right? And so you have to adjust yourselves. Unfortunately, they are also not willing to come in. You have to do what you can to minimize the damage, right? To minimize the fighting. And believe it or not, 9 times out of 10, they usually come around. They still don't want to talk to me, but they are at least open to having the conversations about where do we go from here. Like I've had, I was teaching a class on TikTok weekly, and a guy inboxed me like, "Hey, my fiance or my wife has been in your classes. I need help." Right? She's been telling me what you guys have been talking about. Like I hear the arguments that her and I are having, and I need help. All right. Unfortunately, in that situation, he waited until after she asked for divorce to come and ask for help. But, right,
Yeah.
at some point, they usually come around and say, okay, I do need help. And so you can only do what you can do. But at the same time, I also tell people that adjusting yourselves can be a lot of work and you don't have to. So that is a decision that you have to make. Are you willing to make the adjustments to adapt or to accommodate or to for this other person? Because sometimes it's a whole lot of work, and I'm not telling you have to, but this is what is going to have to happen for you to have a healthier relationship, or at least a more peaceful relationship right now. And then it's up to you to decide whether or not you are willing to do that work or not. Because I don't ever tell people like, oh yeah, just bend over backwards 1,000%. No. If you want to bend, for sure, we could talk about how do we make this easier for you. But if you realize that at any point that I'm doing too much bending, nothing is being reciprocated, I don't want to do this anymore, that's okay. We can have that conversation too.
That's the power of choice. And you know what, in my practice, I've seen so many couples that where the husband don't want to come in. And it's so common, like you said, but you know what? They actually in the room, not physically, but they there. So when they make changes, it forces them to have to alternate at home, because
Absolutely.
you making changes that's causing a little turbulence at home when they don't know it, because it's like you're growing and they see the growth. and it's like almost like it stirs up something in them. So it's so cool. It's so common that we have that, but it also helps, and they end up.
It does. So last week, one of my community members, we have been talking about how to respond instead of react to the things that he had said. And so she came in last week and she shared, like, I haven't been yelling back and he doesn't know what to do. His tone has changed, right? We had actually had a conversation today, she said, because I haven't been yelling back at him for weeks. And we actually talked today. And I said, well, look at that.
I know it's cause and effect, right?
Yeah.
So I have one more question. So, because I want to make sure I respect the time, because I can talk to you for hours in this, because I'm a relationship coach, so you know you're in my vein.
I can listen for hours. I can listen for hours to y'all too.
What's the one step that today that that the audience or someone's listening can take to start shifting a pattern in a life to help them with emotional intelligence?
If I only had to give you one,
yes,
it would be. There's so many, but if it was only one, I would say to be more empathetic.
That's a big one.
Step outside.
I love it.
Get over yourself. It is not all about you. Step out of yourself. Step out of your own shoes and take time to see things from other people's perspective. You don't have to agree, but do your best to understand where that person is coming from. And that will solve a lot of problems that people are having if they were to just consider the other person just a little bit more, right? It's not all about you. You can pick up your issues after you step into their shoes, but just put it down for 1 second, just 1 second. It's going to be right there when you get back. I promise. It might not, honestly, it might not, right? But when you take time to see things from the other person's perspective, instead of just trying to fight your agenda and put it down for 1 second and just step into their shoes and see what's going on with them and see things from their perspective. Again, you don't have to agree. But if you were to understand other people more, I think that would help. I think that's the one thing people could do to make their relationship healthier almost immediately.
Hey, I love that. You're right. That was a big one. That's a huge one. You would think we rehearsed this, but we didn't. But no, this conversation it really is. It's really amazing. Just the questions I asked, I can see how much of an expert you are in emotional intelligence. And I love it because, you only really hear it in the corporate world, but it's definitely, something that even when you take it in the corporate world, you can take it into your relationships at home. So, Ron, before we go in, do you have any further questions or comments?
I got so many questions and comments. We got to do part 2, 3, 4, and 5, but
let me know when. I'm here for you. But
one thing I want to ask is, sometimes when your partner is talking out loud, and you ask them, "What do you say?" "I'm not talking. I'm just talking out loud." Well, it goes on for a while. Then when they ask you a question, you don't respond back. "Don't you hear me talking to you?" I said, "I didn't know if you was asking me a question because you talk out loud." What do you do to a person that talks out loud like that? Then when they turn around and ask a question, and it's not really a question, you don't know where they stop talking out loud and then ask a question, and they get upset at their partner for not responding back to them.
So I have gotten into the habit of asking somebody before they even start talking, "Let me stop you right now. What do you need from me right now? You want me to just listen? Am I giving you feedback? Am I being a sounding board? Like, you got to tell me what you need, because somebody like me with ADHD, you can't sit here and talk to me for 5 minutes and think I know what you talked about for the first 3. It's not going to work out." And so because I am self-aware and I know that about myself, hold on, before we even get there, what do you want from me right now? You got to tell me, because otherwise you going to be upset with me and you just have to get over it. So I stop. What is it that you want from me right now? Let me know, so I know how to, like, what brain am I listening to? Like, am I half listening because you just venting? Or do you really need to ask questions? Or like, what's the issue here? Like, what are we trying to figure out? Like when when you're in law school, they tell you to read the question before you even read the problem. Like when we're studying for the bar, they tell you to read the question first so you know what you're looking out for. So my brain still works the same way. You got to tell me what we're doing before we get into this monologue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to figure out what to do? Do you need to validate your like I have to know up front. And so it works in a legal field. I use it in my personal life too, because otherwise you're gonna be upset with me.
That is one of the most powerful questions I use with, my children, grandchildren, where, what do you need from me right now? Because I want to know when you're talking to me, which hat I should be using. And that is one of the most powerful questions because it helps the person feel validated as well.
Yeah.
It helps them feel seen.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing is though, but we cannot let the other person off the hook. They have to know the answer to the question.
Mm-hmm.
I had a consultation with a woman, and her and her fiance were going through issues, and she were able to run it down to me. And I said, "Have you shared this with him?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "What was his response?" He said, "Just tell me what you need me to do." And I said, "Well, did you tell him?" And she said, "No, I don't know." I said, "Well, girl, if you don't know, how he's supposed to know?"
Right.
Like that's what you want him to just figure it out. And right. And so also not knowing is a valid answer, but that's up for you to decide.
Right. Exactly.
You have to take accountability, right? I always tell people take accountability for the part you play in this. So the part in that case, she's not telling him what she needs. You can say, "I'm unhappy, I feel unheard," but you have to tell me what I need to do to make you feel heard. I can guess, I could throw things at a wall, I could see what might work for somebody else. But again, this is where the self-awareness comes in, and you cannot let go or neglect your own responsibility and accountability. If I'm coming to tell you that I feel neglected, I feel dismissed, I feel unheard, I have to also be able to tell you what I need for those things to change. I can't leave that up to you to change it, because you might come up with something and think that you are now making me feel heard, but what if it doesn't?
Yes.
I won't keep having the same argument. Whereas if I do the self-work and the self-reflection, and I can come to you and say, "Hey, I feel unheard because you don't acknowledge, or you don't do this, or next time this is what I need from you," right? I was dating this guy before, and he would always try to jump in with a solution. Like I was just venting about work. He's like, "Well, did you do this?" And I told him, "Look, all I need you to say is, 'Dag, that's crazy.'" And from that moment on, when I would text him like in the middle of the day, like upset, like something happened, he would literally write back, "Dag, that's crazy." And that's literally all I needed. That's all I need.
I tell my husband, disclaimer, I need you to listen, don't fix.
Don't fix. Yes.
I put that disclaimer because he'd be ready, like, okay, what do I need to, his brain just go there, and I'll go, disclaimer, don't, just listen. That's all I need you to do.
What happens is sometimes when you jump into fix, that person now feels dismissed, right?
Yes.
I'm just sharing how I feel, and you're trying to push that aside and tell me what to do. No, I just need my emotions to sit for a second, right? And I have that problem too, right? I am very solution focused. I've had guys tell me, "I just want you to listen." Oh, I apologize. So now I ask first, "Can I offer a different solution? Or what is it that you need from me right now?" Right? So the other person has to take accountability in that too.
And yeah, because our brains go, especially when you're in the coaching work, our brains see what you don't see, and we're like, "Oh, I know how to fix this," in essence. But at the same time, I don't want to take your power away from what you can actually figure out on your own too. But it's you're right. Accountability is serious because, it's important because it lets me know what I need to do as well, because sometimes I don't know. I'm not perfect, but I don't know what to do in this situation, but to do what I know to do.
And it may not work for me.
I hear y'all on that, because I do the same thing. My wife come home venting about work and say, "Wow, that was outrageous." She said, "I know." And I don't try to fix anything. I leave it alone. I said, "Man," I said, "what do they do after that?" And she'll go on and on. And son-in-law, I got cut off. "Come on, baby. We talk for an hour about your job. Let's talk about me and you. Come on, time out." But you're right. Just simple words say, man, you acknowledge that you hear them. And that's what they want you to just acknowledge. If they want something fixed, it'll be an open-end question. But a lot of people want to jump in they fix happy. I can fix it. No, you can't fix your own life. How you gonna fix mine?
And sometimes you just need to bounce off what you're thinking, because sometimes you're not thinking rationally.
Yeah.
But when you hear it, you're like, wait a minute, I get it. Sometimes you just need somebody to be a confidant, not a coach or something,
Everybody wants to feel seen, heard, and understood.
Yes.
In relationships, just in life in general. And so I also tell people that 9 times out of 10, when somebody is coming to you, even if they say, what do you think? Or was I wrong? They really just want you to validate how they are feeling. 9 times out of 10, it's the validation thing, right? You see all over social media where people write these long paragraphs and it's a, what do you think? But then they get upset when you jump in because you are filling in the blanks with you. They gave you this much, they gave you a paragraph, and you have no choice but to fill in the gaps with your own experiences, which is probably accurate of what they're going through. And so people, even when people kind of like, am I wrong for feeling? You're never wrong for how you feel. But other than that, I need to just validate, well, what do you think? I'm never going to tell you, right? People, it's a validation thing that people want. And that is how you make your person feel seen, heard, and understood.
Yes, exactly. Amen to that. Wow. Drop the mic. Bam. No.
Martha, you something else. Drop the mic.
I know, right?
Boy, oh boy. So
what a great conversation, Erin. I'm so glad that I reached out to you to come on the radio. I thought I did already, and I said, reach out. And I was like, oh man, let me get you on here. But I love to get people who really know what they're doing. And I love that you're in the coaching arena with this, because emotional intelligence is not talked about a whole lot. Matter of fact, it's so foreign sometimes to people. They hear the word, but do they really know what it encompasses? And I thank you for sharing the nuances and all the things that you know about it, because it shows, your level of expertise in this area. And I'm so glad that you actually coaching in this area, because a lot of people you don't see a lot of it. So thank you so much for coming on and embracing us with your wisdom. And I'll, definitely hand it over to Ron to end the show, but I just thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. And let me just say, thank you for having me. I am always open to, I love this having these conversations. Like, cause you said, most people don't know what it is, or it's a buzzword nowadays. And so I am always open to having this conversation, right? My goal is to help as many people as possible. I think this is my goal, my purpose right now, to help people understand the importance of emotional intelligence and building and maintaining healthy romantic relationships. So if anything that I share today resonates, I would love to invite people to join my membership community, the EQ for Love membership community. It is a safe space for women to get the tools, the support, and the coaching they need to communicate better, right? To feel emotionally safe and create the kind of relationships that they really want. And so you can find it on my website, eqforlove.com. You can follow me on social media. My handles are all my name, Erin F Darden. And I am here to connect. Even though I have the membership community, I will work with you one-on-one if that's something that you feel like you need some additional support. I'm just here. I just want to help.
Wow. This was enjoyable. Martha, you brought another one on the show. Boy, I don't know what to say. Martha been bringing me people on that I didn't know nothing about. And you today, Erin, I would say it was enlightening to hear you, because you were talking, and Martha, no, my brain get to moving. I got the questions, but I had to hold back. But we're going to do it again. But I appreciate you taking your time out coming on the show. Martha, once again, thank you for bringing an influencer on. Because that's what we call her, influencer, because you influenced me on a subject I didn't know about. And now I'm going to be rushing out to do you have a book out?
I am working on the book.
Okay.
It's coming.
All right. Well, when you get it, let us know about it.
I sure will.
Okay, ladies, thank you for taking time out today to be on the Ron G Morning Show. And peace. And
all right.
Be with you the rest of the day.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, bye. Thank you for tuning in to WSAN Radio. Catch us on our YouTube channel, WSAN Radio SA. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button.